Hello everyone, good afternoon from Caracas. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. To begin today, the electoral campaign is about to end in Argentina. Now the campaign managers and party representatives are meeting with the National Electoral Authority to put the final touches on arrangements for this Sunday's poll. The Front for Victory candidate, Buenos Aires Governor Daniel Scioli, will hold a massive rally this afternoon at Buenos Aires' Luna Park, along with local officials, governors and lawmakers from his party there. The leader of Let's Change, the mayor of Buenos Aires City, Sergio Massa, will end his campaign at the Art Museum in the capital's Tigre district. And Renewal Front candidate Mauricio Macri will do the same at the Orfero Stadium in the province of Cordoba. And now for the latest on these important elections for Latin America and for Argentina, we turn to our correspondent there in Argentina, Laureano Ponce. Hello there, Laureano. The one thing we know here is that these elections will mean the end of the Kirchner family's time in office. To what extent will their legacy continue or disappear based on who wins these elections?
Well, hello to you, Cody, and to all our audience. The first thing we need to say about the legacy of the Kirchner government is that it is very difficult for it to meet an end after these elections, depending on who wins. Because something we need to keep in mind is that several pro-Kirchner organizations are going to hold dozens of seats in parliament after the election, according to the recent polls that say that the Front for Victory ticket is around 40% of the vote. And also that another pro-Kirchner ticket is going to, most likely, according to the same polls, be governing the province of Buenos Aires, which is the most important province here in Argentina. So taking into consideration these two facts, plus the massive support that the Kirchner family has granted over the years, it is very difficult to say that their legacy will meet an end based on who wins. What most probably will happen is that it will become some new form of a political movement based on the same policies, based on the same left-leaning policies, but without being in the national government right now.
Laureano, what issues have sort of dominated this campaign there? If you could briefly run through some of them for this, and how do the top candidates differ on those issues?
Well, the main issues have been, on one side, social policies and wealth distribution policies. Main candidates right now, Daniel Scioli, has said that he is going to continue with the policies carried on by the governments of Nestor Kirchner and Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, and he's also committed to the rights of the workers, to respecting the rights of the workers and labor conditions, and he has said that, for example, some measures that are demanded by the economic establishment, such as currency devaluation, are not among his priorities. On the other side, the Buenos Aires City Mayor Mauricio Macri, who is leading the right-wing coalition Cambiemos, is more committed to this idea of recovering the profit rate of big businesses as the path towards economic growth. And of course, the welfare policies, like the universal child allowance. But on this topic, all candidates agree that it must continue. On the other hand, the second important issue has been foreign policy. On one hand, Daniel Scioli, the candidate for the ruling Front for Victory, has said that his priority will be strengthening Mercosur, strengthening also all these political spaces of Latin American unity, such as UNASUR, CELAC. For example, we must remember that the first international visit he made while being a candidate was to Cuba. He met with Raúl Castro, where he demanded the end of the Cuban embargo. And on the other side, Mauricio Macri has said that, all right, we need to strengthen the Mercosur, but we also need to start looking at the Trans-Pacific Partnership as a way, we would say, an unspoken way of recovering the alignment with the United States policy for Argentina. These are the two main topics that we would say are more evident, or how they differ in their platforms.
That Trans-Pacific Partnership we've heard so much about in the past few months. All right, Laureano Ponce, reporting from Argentina. I'm sure we'll be checking back with you, Laureano, as we start to learn the results on Sunday and into next week.
Thanks to you, Cody, and goodbye to all our audience.
And we continue in Argentina now. On Wednesday, a group of cartoneros, or cardboard workers, protested in Buenos Aires to demand better working conditions and improved pay. They burned trash and blocked off roads with wheelie bins, sparking traffic chaos there in the city. Now, cartoneros are usually entire families who sort through the city's waste and put aside materials that can be sold to recycling companies before official waste collectors arrive. There was a boom in this profession 5 years ago due to the economic crisis that hit the country. Argentina is not the only country to hold elections. Guatemala will hold its runoff elections as well this Sunday, and the two candidates met with the president this morning. Former First Lady Sandra Torres says that she feels confident she will win, despite the fact that comedian-turned-politician Jimmy Morales leads in the polls there. Now, Torres has been criticized for divorcing her presidential husband only to run for office. The election comes after the arrest of top-level officials for corruption, including the now former president Otto Pérez Molina and former vice president Roxana Valdetti. Now, surveys show Morales will win with 58.5% of the vote.
Compete in the next period as a candidate. Obviously, the Constitutional Court announced a resolution where she was not allowed to participate. Now, she doesn't have any impediments.
8 people who are accused of helping drug lord El Chapo Guzman escape from a Mexican prison in July have been arrested. The Attorney General there made the announcement on Wednesday night. Among those detained is Guzman's brother-in-law, who was reportedly in charge of building the tunnel through which Guzman allegedly escaped, and the pilot also was arrested, who flew him in a small Cessna plane to the region where he took refuge. The others are a man who negotiated the purchase of land near the prison from where the tunnel began, the person who sold the property, and another known to have coordinated the construction of drug tunnels at the U.S. border. However, no high-level official has been arrested thus far.
From the instructions of the President of the Republic, the institutions which make up the Security Cabinet will continue to work together for the detention of Joaquin Guzman and the rest of those priority targets for crimes, such as those acts which for years have injured Mexicans and who evade justice. Guzman managed to escape from prison, but neither him or those who helped him will escape justice.
And the Attorney General is speaking from the region between Durango and Sinaloa. Residents there have been protesting to demand the withdrawal of Mexican Marines from their communities after a military operation to search for the drug lord last week saw an outbreak of violence. Several residents were injured, some are still missing, and many of them have fled through the woods to escape the Marines' raids. An international NGO dedicated to landmine clearing has started to give back mine-free land to 42 families in Colombia. Now, the families were displaced 13 years ago because of the half-century-long conflict between guerrillas and paramilitary groups in the country. Landmines have killed nearly 11,000 people in Colombia since 1990. The organization said the return of the whole area could take months or even years more.
Today we feel satisfied because we already see that they have compelled us a little, improving the road. They gave us 5 homes for the region. Already we saw the change has done a lot, and we hope it can be much better.
In Honduras now, more than 200 human rights defenders are accused of different crimes. Now, the election of a new Supreme Court seemed like an opportunity to end such political persecution and the criminalization of protest. But so far, that is not happening there, as our correspondent Gerardo Torres now reports.
Gladys Lanza is a Honduran women's rights defender. She was accused of defamation just for speaking out for a woman that was sexually harassed. Even though the evidence proves her innocence, she could face jail.
According to the preliminary sentence, they forced me to sign a book monthly that guarantees that I will not escape or leave the country. I have to do this until the Supreme Court confirms, changes, or cancels the sentence against me.
The election of a new Supreme Court on January next year seemed as an opportunity to stop political persecution and criminalization of protests, but analyzing the process by which it will be elected, experts believe little will change.
The new Supreme Court has a problem from its origins, product of the manipulation and the election of the nominee board. Its confirmation is made to choose judges that will work for impunity, so there will be no change in the persecution against human rights defenders, no change in the criminalization that we have seen until now.
When we see the election process of the new Supreme Court, we feel that it won't be as transparent as it should be. This new court will be manipulated because in the Congress they have defined the sectors that will vote in favor and against, and the political parties' interests are more important than the people's political interests and justice.
With a manipulated justice system, impunity in Honduras will continue applying the law only against those who oppose the government policies. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
In Peru now, a new justice minister was sworn in on Wednesday. The previous one resigned amid a scandal related to the First Lady. Aldo Vasquez Rio is a lawyer and journalist who served as the dean of the School of Social Sciences at Lima University. He takes over from the position from Gustavo Adriansen, who resigned on Tuesday to avoid being ousted by the Congress. It comes after the government of President Ollanta Humala dismissed a public prosecutor, Julia Principe, who had been investigating a case linked to the First Lady. We stay in Peru now, where a decade of macroeconomic prosperity there has largely not improved the lives of those not among the economic elite. Raul Mora now reports on how many Peruvians still struggle to get access to basic services despite economic boom.
Jenny Torres lives in a poor neighborhood in Lima called Paraíso that has no public water or drainage systems. She is forced to buy water brought by trucks to her home, and she has to pay up to 8 times the cost of it in wealthier neighborhoods.
Sometimes I don't wash my children. Sometimes I don't wash clothes in order to save water, because water here is not wasted. You can't. I have to save the smallest quantity of water, and sometimes here you order water and they don't want to come. You have to buy water, but at the rate the sellers want, or otherwise they don't give you water.
Jenny's family is one out of 1 million people who are in the same situation in the metropolis of Lima, one of the driest cities in the world. The Neighborhood Association of Paraíso has been trying to get water and drainage services unsuccessfully.
The process to obtain water here in Lima is very tricky. So tricky we can't do it. We can obtain certain prerequisites, but not all. I estimate that here we are going to have a wait for 20 or 25 years for us to obtain the water and drainage that we so desperately need.
Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the government launched a conference on improving water services for the country, noting they are investing $400 million a year to improve the conditions.
The problem is very big, but we have to keep moving forward. We have to cover the gaps in stages. It is in that manner that the ministry is working. It is investing in water and sanitation projects that are integral.
However, the vice minister estimated that the amount needed to provide water and drainage services for all citizens is $16 billion, and at that rate of investment, it will take 50 years to reach that goal. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
All right, we go back to a story we were talking about earlier, elections in Guatemala. We're going to turn to our correspondent, Gerardo Torres. Guatemalans there are scheduled to go to the polls on Sunday, Gerardo, and the polls there are pointing to that a comedian turned politician, Jimmy Morales, that he will get the victory there. Sandra Torres, though, she says that her own polls, her internal polls, say otherwise. Is there any evidence of that? And how is the country gearing up for elections there?
Hello, Cody. Jimmy Morales has the best numbers in the poll
because he was the winner in the first round, and he also counted the votes of the former candidate of the Leader Party, Manuel Valdizón. The numbers of Sandra Torres are based in what he believes that he can attract the voters of the outrage movement or indignado movement that were in the street for 4 months, and of course the resignation of President Otto Pérez Molina. He says based her campaign, trying to attract those votes, and he believes that he can add enough votes to win Morales this Sunday.
All right, Gerardo Torres with a quick update there from Guatemala. We know you'll continue to keep us updated as we wait for the results there in Guatemala. Gerardo, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All right, and we're going to move on now. We go to, I believe we're going to go to, give me 1 second here. Actually, we're going to go and take a look now at the other news we're following around the world. Two Palestinian men were shot by Israeli police after they allegedly stabbed an Israeli at a bus stop west of Jerusalem. Now, one of the alleged attackers has died while the other remains hospitalized in critical condition. Now, according to police, the 25-year-old victim was only moderately injured. This latest incident brings the Palestinian deaths by Israeli soldiers or settlers since the beginning of October to 52, while 8 Israelis have been killed in Palestinian attacks. According to rights groups, Israeli forces have been using disproportionate violence against Palestinian children. At least 10 people have been killed this month. During a joint news conference with Germany's foreign minister, Frank-Walter, in Berlin, the EU's foreign policy chief said that a quartet of Middle East peace mediators will meet in Vienna on Friday to urge Israeli and Palestinian leaders to tone down their rhetoric and calm down the situation on the ground.
But the main objective is, first of all, calm down at least the rhetoric of the leaderships, because the paradox of the Middle East peace process, or the situation among Israel and Palestine, is that being one of the oldest conflicts we are dealing with, it's also one of the few for which the final outcome, the final settlement, is more or less understood by everybody.
Russian fighter jets have continued operations from their base in Syria. Russia's Ministry of Defense released a video purporting to show their planes in action, which has allowed Moscow to again portray its military far more powerful outside of its borders. Russia has been conducting daily airstrikes in Syria since September 30th to back a Syrian government offensive. Russia has announced that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will meet on Friday in Vienna. They will be joined by their counterparts from Saudi Arabia and Turkey, which seems to be a push for a diplomatic solution. After President Assad's visit to Moscow on Tuesday, Telesur's cameras have been accompanying the Syrian army during its latest military operations in the Darai region, west of the capital of Damascus. Hazam Abdullah now reports from the front line.
We are standing here in the middle of Daraa, west side of Damascus, alongside the Syrian army. And we have seen the clear progress made by the army in its clashes with the terrorists. The officers and soldiers of the Syrian army say their morale is high as they regain control of the various sectors in this area, which were under the control of the extremists.
Our morale is very high and victory is coming. It's impossible for evil to triumph over goodness. We are here to defend the innocent and we're winning no matter how long it takes.
The reactions to the lightning visit made by President al-Assad to Moscow. Many fighters cheered with joy, as if they already know what this visit will mean in the coming days.
Morale is high, and we are in a state of readiness for any new mission. We believe that God's victory is near.
Of course, after the news of the President's visit, our morale rose even more. We are making clear progress on this front all the time.
The story doesn't end here. This is just one of several fronts in Syria. The fighters on the front line take us to see them in action, with faces full of joy and determination. Everyone wants this to be the last episode in this fierce war. Hazem Abdullah, Tirisur, Syria.
Libyan lawmakers are under increasing diplomatic pressure to approve the UN-sponsored plan for unity government there. On October 19th, the lawmakers from Libya's internationally recognized government announced they had rejected the UN's proposal for a power-sharing arrangement with rival Islamist-led authorities. Even though the UN-sponsored plan was rejected, the Speaker of the Tobruk-based House of Representatives said that the door of dialogue is not shut. The EU, US, and other countries have all urged all parties to accept the peace plan in order to avoid further instability there. Thousands of people are waiting to continue their journey into the European Union from the Serbia-Croatia border crossing. In a 24-hour period, over 10,000 migrants, many fleeing violence in Syria, have arrived in Slovenia. The refugees then hope to make their way to Austria. Now, according to a UNHCR coordinator there on the ground, the current flow of refugees is 400 to 4,500 refugees a day. The UN has provided blankets, food, and drink to the refugees who are camped in the open in the cold. Hillary Clinton in the United States now is currently on Capitol Hill testifying before the House Benghazi Committee. The marathon hearing is said to have huge stakes for the politician in her bid to be the Democratic presidential candidate. Clinton avoided politics in her opening remarks, saying she was there to, quote, honor the service of those 4 men, end quote, who died in Benghazi, Libya. Clinton openly conceded that security was insufficient there. She added that it was deeply distressing when she and her team heard that the CIA was unsuccessful after the attack on the compound of the U.S. mission there. Around 50 million metric tons of palm oil are produced yearly worldwide, but the exploitation of workers, the destruction of the environment, and the displacement of thousands of farm workers are important factors that large companies often ignore. Bianca Perez now reports from the United States.
Various organizations who advocate for human rights and environmental issues gathered in Washington, D.C. to denounce a violation of human rights occurring in Central American countries like Guatemala and Honduras. The increase in the number of African palm plantations has unjustly left thousands of farmers without their lands.
Indigenous peoples and Afro-descendant communities like the Garifuna communities, whose lands are along the coasts, these are the very fertile, rich lands that the plantation holders-to-be want to take over. So they've been displacing hundreds, thousands of people from their lands and territories.
Palm oil is the most widely consumed vegetable oil on the planet. It is in about half of all packaged products and also used as a biofuel. The high demand for this oil has caused an increase in deforestation and extensive carbon emissions, which contribute to global warming.
We are on a self-destructive path in which we will create a planet that will be like those in Hollywood movies. And many people think this is something that will happen a long time from now, and we can't continue to see this as something far away, because the decisions that are being made are destructive to this world, which as human beings we have the responsibility to maintain.
The U.S. government plays a large role in shaping the policies the development banks such as the Inter-American Development Bank or the World Bank adopt. These banks are some of the principal supporters of the expansion of African palm and therefore fund some of the companies who are committing violations to the rights of farm workers.
What we're asking is for the U.S. government to take a role in reshaping and holding the development banks to their mandate, which is poverty elimination. And the expansion of biofuels expands poverty, and so is actually contrary to the mandates.
In many instances, farmers who work these plantations have no protection from the chemicals that they are exposed to through the fertilizers used. Bianca Perez, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
The High Commission for Refugees in the United Nations described the refugee crisis as a European problem that requires a resolution excuse me, from all the members of the old continent. We have more on that in our next segment. Actually, we don't have that segment, and we're going to finish our program there. We have plenty more on all of those stories we reported and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day.